Do you ever look around you and just look at the world and feel like, kind of like we're in the Matrix, like there's something missing? I don't know, I was always looking for this secret. I was always looking for, I wouldn't say happiness or contentment, but I was always looking to try and break out of the 9 to 5, just a normal monotonous.
Hi, this is the second video of a YouTube series I'm putting out about philosophy/politics. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about something really important and really fun and central to philosophical knowledge. I'm going to be talking about epistemology and a certain branch of epistemology called idealism. This video will have 3 parts. First, I will talk about idealism. Then I will talk about the different branches and different divides within idealist epistemology. And third, I will talk about the political implications of this divide, which is where it gets really interesting, so stay in tune. Let's talk about epistemology first. Epistemology is the philosophy of knowledge. How do we come to know things if we come to know them at all? This is a very interesting question, asked back in Plato's days. And ever since then, there has been a major divide between 2 schools of thought. Materialism versus idealism. Aristotle says that our senses are reliable sources of information when interacting with the outside world, because our senses are our only connection to the outside world. Whereas Plato says, no, actually, our senses are deceptive. Therefore, our thinking ability, our rationality is far more reliable in interacting with the real world, as opposed to the world of appearance. Well, that's interesting. So Plato seems to be dividing 2 worlds here. There is a world of appearance that our senses interact with, but according to Plato, there's also the world of forms. What Plato means by this is there is a world where the perfect version of everything exists. For example, a perfect table, a form of a table that has the most tablenessness, right? And that's what we think when we say table. We don't think the table you have in your bedroom. We think the most table ever, right? And this is the table in Plato's world of forms. And that is the pure reality. And that is independent from the world of appearance. What Plato says essentially is that ideas are far more real than reality itself. And that is in its essence idealism as an epistemological branch. Well, talking about Plato, let's get into talk about different branches of idealism. I'd like you to pay close attention to this image I'm putting up on the... I should really learn editing, by the way. This is very ineffective, because I'm bad at drawing to it. But anyway, okay. Plato talks about this in the 7th book of the Republic. This is the famous allegory of the cave. This here is Plato. And Plato is looking at the world of appearance. This is the world of forms. And world of forms, through sun, leaves its shadow on the world of appearance. So in that sense, Plato, when looking at the world of appearance, is not at all seeing the world of forms, because it's not looking at that direction, it's looking at its shadow. Now, Plato says that this is what reality is like. This is a metaphor for epistemological knowledge. When you interact with the outside world, you're merely interacting with the shadows of what is actually real, right? And Plato says, when he goes on, that only the wisest men can be brave enough to turn away from the shadows, look directly at the sun, and see the world of forms. Now, talking about the world of forms, I've already explained this. It's the world of pure ideas. So in this sense, world of forms is the objective reality, because it's unitary. The tableness, yeah, that's a better word. Tableness is a singular thing. And the most tableness table can be a single table. There cannot be the more table than the most tableness table, if that makes sense. So in that case, Plato, when looking at the world of forms, is far more in connection with the reality than another person who is experimenting in the world of appearance. That's the first. That's what we call sort of the naive branch of idealist philosophy. And then second, we have Immanuel Kant. Now, this is Kant, and Kant is trying to see the world of essence. However, he can only see the world of appearance because of its disillusioned vision abilities. Now, Kant specifically says here, similar to the fashion of Plato, that our senses are limited. But also, differentiating from Plato, Kant also says our thinking ability is also limited. What does that mean? Well, we have a set of intellectual assumptions when we start thinking. We have an intellectual apparatus that we look through to see the world around us. Not only our senses, but also our mental abilities are limited in interacting with the world of essence, the pure world. So we're only exposed to this world of appearance, right? Because nobody can expand their senses beyond the human senses. And if our mental processes are also limited, then we cannot interact at all with the world of essence. And that's the main differentiation between Plato and Kant. Kant says you cannot turn around and look at the sun because world of essence is only seeable by God himself. Because God, according to Kant, is the true perceiver. But humans have to think and interpret when they interact with an object or a subject. And in that sense, you cannot turn back and look at the sun and say, hey, that's the real world, that's the world of forms, because only God can do that. Now in the third section, we have Hegel. Now this is a very simple image as opposed to the other ones, and you can see it gets a lot simpler as we move through. And it's interesting because even though it gets simpler, it becomes more universal to apply to. Hegel says, well, Kant, you got a good point there, buddy, but you forgot one important thing. Humans are also part of reality. So when humans interact with the world of reality and try to understand it, it's reality interacting with itself and understanding itself. That to me is mind-blowing because that's a major turn in schools of philosophy. Because up until Hegel, everyone was a Kantian philosopher, right? And up until Kant, everyone was a Platonic philosopher. Kind of the pragmatic approach to epistemological knowledge, which is to say our senses are reliable sources of information. That's why we should love science and should not love thinking all that much. That approach kind of moves towards England and Anglo-Saxon philosophy and stays there. Meanwhile, continental philosophy, French and German, which are the two major schools of thought, stay loyal to the Kantian and before that Platonian idealist structures. When Hegel says, hold on a second, that's not true, everyone becomes a Hegelian. At least the majority of the people. I'm making a generalization here in order to explain the significance of the changes here. So Hegel says, we almost look at a mirror, and Hegel uses the word Zeitgeist, not the Zeitgeist, but the Geist in the German sense. He says, we look at our soul, and our soul looks back at us, and through that we engage with the reality. But if you look at this image, there is no essence here. Us humans are appearance because we are the world of appearance, right? You can see me, and I appear in the sensible sense. So there is no world of essence here. We can only try to understand anything to do with reality through dialectical discussion. And that is a major turn, because in the previous two idealist philosophies, we had assumed that there is this objective reality that in Plato we can engage with if we're a wise person. In Kant, we cannot engage with it at all. Whereas in Hegelian philosophy, essence, and listen to this very carefully because this is very central, essence is appearance as appearance itself. Now, what that really means is that there is this notion of objective reality, but we are clamped down to our subjective interpretations of our subjective selves. Yeah, think about that for a second. Let that sink in, right? Now, there are millions of different political implications of this, but the most striking one to me, when we integrate these concepts into political philosophy, is that we have a scale from right to left. And we've probably seen this in the inverse, so I would probably put it like this: from right to left. The main divide, and this is what Slavoj Žižek says also, in the left and right schools of thought in politics, is that the right-wingers believe that there exists an objective reality that can be engaged with. And the right-wingers are the ones who have access to that objective reality. That's why their philosophy is organic. You'll hear this word a lot when studying conservative philosophy. Conservative philosophy mainly argues that social constructs are very limited. Human process is organic in itself, and through its dialectic, it arrives at truth. So not a lot of things are socially constructed, actually. This is the justification for hierarchies as well. Hierarchies exist because they're naturally justified, right? Whereas in the left, they say, no, actually not. There is no objective reality. We're some bunch of Hegelians, and we believe that you yourself you're mesmerized by your subjective interpretation of what you think is objective. And this is why philosopher Slavoj Žižek says that he hates wisdom. Now, what is that supposed to mean? Isn't he a philosopher? Isn't he supposed to be the wise guy? No, because why? Wisdom implies, according to Žižek, some sort of interaction with an objective reality. So when Andrew Tate says you gotta exit the matrix, man, and you gotta treat these sort of people in this sort of way, and when Jordan Peterson says you gotta clean your room, in brackets, what they actually mean is this is the only way you can be successful, because this is the objective reality. Telling people how to live their lives and what they should do in how they interact with other people implies that there is an objective way of doing it. And Žižek says, well, that objective reality could be anything. It could be this sun over there. It could be that sun over there. It could be anything. So there's no point in trying to come up with conclusions here. What we should do instead is to ask more questions. What we should do instead is engage with the ideological framework within our biases, right? Because we all have biases, and everyone does. And trying to understand, trying to conflict with our biases is far more reliable in arriving at objective reality than pretending to know the objective reality yourself. Žižek says here that if you exit the matrix, if you choose the red pill, it's nothing.